Hey there! Today I want to give you a bit of an overview of all of my favorite art supplies. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's actually start with these crayons. Those are the Neocolor 2 from Caran, so water-soluble crayons. And I have this set. It initially came with 15 colors, and then I bought another set as well as a few colors open stock. So these are the ones that I have now. And I think that is a really good amount of colors that I have now. It is enough to create interesting art pieces, but not too much, so it's overwhelming. And I've really enjoyed using these lately, so here's a few art pieces that I created with these. Something that I started to use a lot more the last year or two is colored pencils, and for more casual coloring book type of drawing, I've been using these colored pencils by Arrtx a lot. They're kind of nice and soft while still not being extremely expensive. So they're sort of an in-between, something more affordable and a higher end colored pencil. Prismacolor colored pencils are obviously very soft. They're even softer than the Arrtx ones, which can be a pro or a con depending on how you look at it. Personally, I've enjoyed using these a lot. Just the unfortunate fact that they do break a lot because they are so soft, and they're unfortunately way too pricey here in Europe because I have to get them shipped from the US. But every now and then I really enjoy using these. I also have a bunch of other brands of colored pencils just in this box together. The best ones that I have are the Polychromos from Faber-Castell. These ones also have light fastness ratings and are generally really light fast. So for more professional type stuff that is meant to be hung up on the wall, I generally go for these. And then for more casual use, I would use the Prismacolors or the Arrtx ones. These here are watercolor pencils from Staedtler. I've actually created an entire course for their colored pencils and mostly watercolor pencils where I teach how to draw or paint different art pieces with them. It's actually been 5 years at this point since I created that course. It is insane how time passes, but these are still some of my favorites for watercolor pencils, and every now and then I really enjoy using these. Something that I also recently discovered, these are probably my most recent acquisition when it comes to art supplies, are the Stabilo woodies. And these are a kid's art supply that I use to just play around, to doodle a bit and loosen up. I also got the Noris Junior ones, which is the version of those from Staedtler. So I have a collection of a few colors from these brands combined. And these are mostly for play. I recently did a video where I compared these to the Neocolors. So check that out in case you're interested to know if these are worth it and how they compare to the Neocolors. Karin markers have also been a part of my art practice for a while now. They have these ones here, those are kind of water soluble ones, and then they also have the ones that have more acrylic ink, so more opaque ink. And I've been using both types. I prefer the ones that are the real brushes. So these have actual brush bristles. I usually struggle to link these because they're not available on Amazon everywhere. But if you can find these, especially the real brushes that are the ones with the opaque ink, the pigment real brushes, I definitely recommend them. These can be a little bit more pricey or a lot more pricey than some other art supplies, but these are more if you want to do small details and you really want to get into creating something really rendered, or if you want to do professional calligraphy, stuff like that. So if you can find these at a good price, I definitely really love these. These are my favorites of this type of marker. These are the Ohuhu alcohol markers. Unless you've been living under a rock, you will know these. It seems like every other YouTuber talks about these or has been talking about these for years and years. I've definitely seen a lot of improvement when it comes to the quality of Ohuhu products over the years. And I would say that these are at a point where they're at a really good price while still having nice quality. And when I first started my channel 7 years ago, I might not have said that about the Ohuhu markers. So these have definitely come a long way and have now earned their place among my favorites. Now let's talk about paints. These are the White Nights watercolors. This was my first palette that I got from them. And I mean, you can literally see that this is my favorite watercolor palette. I have almost used up the white, and some of the other paints are like very, very heavily used. And I think I have even replaced the, did I say white? The yellow. I've even replaced that once, if I remember correctly. So these have gotten a lot of use. They're also full of cat hair, which all of my stuff is full of cat hair, so that is not an unusual thing to happen. If you see any hair in any of the products that I show you, that's from my cats. I've been using these since 2018, I believe, and I just fell in love with them and I couldn't stop using them. After a while, I also got this palette. I think last year or 2 years ago, I got this. This is the Granulating watercolor set, and I replaced 2 of the colors. I put a yellow tone and a magenta tone in here. I believe this is a Naples yellow. And now it is a little bit more of a complete palette, because before it was just blues and greens and purples. But now it is a really, really nice palette. I love the blues and the purples and the greens that are in there. Just 2 of the colors that I used the least I replaced with these ones. And also with this set here, I replaced the ochre that was in here and put a turquoise in there. And that is one of the beauties of the White Nights. They come in open stock, so you can kind of build your palette as you go or as you like. If you realize that there's a color in your set that you barely ever use, you can consider just replacing it with another color that you maybe use more often. And so these have become my most used watercolors for sure. Now this is a watercolor palette that I got somewhat recently as well. I did a collab with Meeden and they sent me this really big palette upon my request. This was the one that I chose, and it comes with a lot of colors. So this is kind of the complete opposite of the White Nights palette that I showed you that just has a limited amount of colors. This one is, it has all of the colors. So this is kind of when I want to do, this is kind of when I want to do all of the colors. So if I want to do something that is just screaming of color, or I just really want to play around, then this is what I gravitate towards. These are more playful. A lot of these colors, I am extremely certain that all of these fluorescent colors are not light fast at all, but this is just a palette that is really playful. It also came with a brush, and this is one of my favorite brushes now, actually. I don't think they sell this brush separately. Unfortunately, I didn't really find it, but I really, really enjoy this brush for some reason. And I think it also came with a pencil. Yeah, there it is. And it has an eraser in here, and it also has these little sponges in here that you can use sort of as like an eraser for the watercolor, and all of these color charts. So this would be a really good gift, for example, if you're looking for something for an artist, maybe not somebody who makes art that gets hung up on the gallery, like not full and professional grade, but these are really nice to paint with. And there's this mixing palette here as well that you can take out or put back in, just like so. Now, speaking of paint, these are acrylic gouache tubes. I have the ones from Turner as well as from Holbein. I don't paint with these in the traditional sense as often as I would like, but I often use them for more craft projects. Like, for example, this little clay pumpkin here, which I painted with these. So you can really get into small details with these. And I also really like that these are matte, but I wouldn't use these for any sort of crafted item that gets a lot of wear and tear because they're not very durable in that sense. But they are really nice for painting very precisely, and they look exactly like regular traditional gouache while being waterproof. Speaking of regular traditional gouache, you can see that this paint tube here sort of exploded and it leaked all over my little basket of paints here. So now I have been a little bit reluctant to paint, unfortunately. I need to go through this and clean up those tubes because now they're full of this sticky goo. I suppose that's the binder that came out. I don't know what really happened with this one, but these are Winsor Newton Designers Gouache. This has been my favorite gouache brand for several years. I have recommended this to anybody who asked me over the years, and up until the point of explosion, I had zero issues with that brand. I hope that this is not something that happens regularly. This was the first time that ever happened to me. Let me know in the comments down below if you've ever had your paint do weird things like that. But these are really nice and decent quality for a good price. I would definitely recommend checking out the introductory set for these. And they also come open stock if there's any colors that you would want to add to your collection. So now we're on to brushes. I've already mentioned this Meeden brush, so I don't have to talk about this any further. My other favorites have been these detail brushes from Meeden as well, actually. And lately I've been enjoying these Princeton brushes. These are detail brushes as well as this Neptune brush. And I've also had good experiences with the Vinci brushes. My brushes do get a lot of wear and tear, so while these are my favorites now, in my older videos like that, you will definitely see me talk about different brands. I have used so many brands of brushes over the years, and they usually work well in the beginning, and then after a few months they're just no longer able to hold their shape like this one. This used to be a really nice detail brush and now it's just frizzled and frayed. And this happens to me after a few months with all of my brushes. So I'm always a bit hesitant when I recommend brushes. I don't know if it's just me or if these just aren't as durable, or maybe I'm just painting too much. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you have any suggestions. I've had suggestions for brushes over the years, and some of those suggestions were actually really helpful, like the Princeton brushes. Now let's briefly talk about sketchbooks, because I have done a video where I compare watercolor sketchbooks. And this was one of my winners. This is probably my favorite watercolor sketchbook at the moment. This is a Hahnemühle toned sketchbook. So this actually has this light gray paper. So you can see that there's a difference between my white paint and the gray paper, but it is still light enough so that you can paint on it with all kinds of mediums. So this was done in watercolors, and the watercolors don't really look dull at all, even though this is gray paper. And this paper is really nice for a variety of mediums. For example, these were acrylic markers, gouache, watercolors, all of that stuff works really well in this sketchbook. Even though it might not be the most high-end watercolor paper, it is really good for all stuff mixed media, and the paper is smooth enough for markers. Now, this might be my most unexpected favorite that I discovered last year. I partnered with Ohuhu last year for a video, and the general deal was, if I like the stuff, I'll mention it. And I was really surprised to find that I love this sketchbook. For years I've said I don't really like mixed media sketchbooks all that much, and this is also a spiral bound. But honestly, I was so surprised by this sketchbook. I did these more casual art pieces in here. Some of these are a little bit more doodly, some of these are more abstract. Some of them are just literally me throwing color onto the page. And I've really enjoyed using this because it is a low pressure sketchbook. It is really thick. It has a lot of pages. It is very affordable. So I don't feel bad if my art doesn't turn out that well in here. There's a lot of this experimentation that I would say isn't my best art whatsoever, but it really doesn't matter that much. In this sketchbook, I feel a little bit more free to just explore. I also have this Ohuhu marker pad. These are bleed proof with alcohol markers. So I did this with alcohol markers. You can see this is done on either side. So there's absolutely no bleed through with alcohol markers. And prior to this one, the only brand that I ever saw create a sketchbook like that was Render. And I have used and fully filled the Render sketchbook before, and I would say that they're pretty comparable. I think this paper is a little bit more on the smoother side, so your markers don't bleed into the paper as much as with the Render paper, but it's been a while since I used the Render sketchbook. I don't know if they still sell them, honestly. They used to be really expensive. They may still be. So if this is more affordable and easier to get, I would definitely aim for this one. And I have definitely gotten used to the spirals as well. I am not nearly as annoyed at them as I thought I would be. I actually like working like this, where I only have this one page and I don't have to have the entire book open. So I was really surprised to find out that I actually enjoy this. And now for paper, I just want to mention two papers. This is the Meeden cold press watercolor paper that I used somewhat recently, and I really enjoyed the effects that I got with that one. And of course the Hahnemühle Agave watercolor paper, which has been my all-time favorite for several years now. It is the perfect mix between smooth paper but still enough texture to allow for really nice results. This is not an art supply in the technical sense, but I wanted to give a quick shout out to this coloring book by Sarah Renee Clark. It is absolutely stunning. The paper is really thick. It has a hard cover, and I've already started using it and coloring it, and it's been so fun. There's a variety of designs in here. Some of them are more small details like this one, and others are a little bit bigger and therefore easier to color in with more chunkier art supplies. I've actually seen people use watercolors with this paper because it is so thick. I'm yet to try that, but I definitely wanted to mention this book. And I will leave links to all of the products that I mentioned today, as well as this, in the description box. None of the brands that I've mentioned have sponsored this video in any way. These are just my personal favorites at the moment. I really hope that you enjoyed this overview. And if you'd like to see some fun and interesting painting ideas, then check out this video next.